The leadership skill of Jagged Alliance 3 is the most mysterious skill of them all.
Nice job! You're an asset to the team.
And unfortunately, the most valuable information regarding leadership is actually not shown in the tooltip explaining what this skill does. And this means that oftentimes players ignore leadership or take it for the wrong reasons. And that's quite understandable. Even in my previous video I failed to mention how super important this skill is. In this video I will explain why this skill is overvalued on the one hand, and in the second half I will show you why leadership is insanely powerful on the other. It actually might not be intended that way.
We're moving at a good pace.
And it's possibly one of the reasons why many players run out of money. But more about that later. Let's have a look at the tooltip first and let's see what we can get from that. Affects the rate for training militia and other mercs. Affects the chance for getting positive and negative morale events. These morale events can be quite powerful and give additional action points during combat. However, there are no clear numbers on what role leadership actually plays in that regard and whether every character's leadership plays a role or only the highest ones. And unfortunately, I also won't be able to give you more details on that in this video.
Well done!
But then we got the training of mercenaries and militia. Especially the latter one you will need to do quite often during the course of the game, and for that you should have a character with high leadership, right? Well, that's not the whole truth. I already mentioned in my previous video the importance of the teaching trait and said that you can equal that to about 50 points in leadership. But that was quite a simplification, and while 50 points already make it sound like militia training without that trait is a waste of time, it's actually even more extreme if you look at it in detail. The teaching trait is a factor which gets multiplied, and that means that the effect gets even stronger the higher the leadership value is. To find out how exactly the training of militia works, I did several test runs and experiments, tested dozens of different values, and finally came up with a formula. It's going to look a bit complicated, but don't worry, in a minute I will also just show you the best trainers you can hire. Alright, so the time you need for training militia is calculated the following way. The total workload is divided by the sum of the total workforce of the trainers. And this workforce consists of a base workforce, which every merc has, added to the leadership skill. This is then doubled for the character if the merc got the teaching traits, and in case of Wolf it's multiplied again by 1.33 due to his special talent. By the way, this talent does not actually speed up the whole operation by 33% as it's misleadingly mentioned in the tooltip. It is only affecting Wolf's contributions. With the values MD has, this looks as following. While he only got 4 leadership, he still got a base workforce of 67, which every character got. Added together and doubled thanks to teaching, you end up with a total workforce of 142. Kalina, on the other side, got a leadership skill of 52, and together with a base value of 67, that results in 119 as total workforce, which is 23 points less than MD got. But if both characters were to train their leadership by 25 points, which MD can do easily within just one training session, and which would take forever for Kalina, then MD would have a total workforce of 192, and Kalina would still hang at just 144. And with that it would be a difference of 48 points already. So leadership for just the training without having the trait is almost pointless, as this is doubling the workforce for the character. In the following graph you can see how your own character would do with and without the trait, and you can see the most relevant mercenaries as comparison, including a version of MD with 31 leadership, which he has after being trained once for 48 hours by Raider. To get the total duration of militia training, you can divide the value of 5829 by the workforce value of the character or the group of characters, and you will then end up with the amount of hours. Be aware that there are breakpoints in the game at which the duration then decreases abruptly. If a character is far beyond the last breakpoint, then the calculated duration might be off by a few hours from the real value, especially on characters with low leadership values, until the next breakpoint is reached. And then I wanted to see how much you get for the money you pay for your mercs, ignoring the irrelevant insurance costs. So if you hire a merc to only train the militia, then it should be MD, Fox, Buns or Hitman. Everyone else is much more expensive per trained unit of militia. Using the negotiator trait you can of course save additional money independent of the work time. Depending on the loyalty of the city, that's around $150 to $300 per unit. So, while leadership does play a role when training militia, it's rather a minor one. First and foremost, you should look for the teaching trait. But there is another advantage of leadership, and that one is quite something. And it's not even listed in the tooltip which we looked at before. You can find this important bit of information when traveling if you drag the cursor on the traveling speed. You will see a percentage value which results from the leadership skill of your character with the highest value in the group. The formula is super simple. You take the leadership skill, reduce it by 25 points, and that's your travel speed in percent. Therefore, a character with 25 in leadership is at 0 and one with 85 at a whopping 60%. If the highest character is less than 25 leadership, the value even becomes negative. Time is money, and that alone makes leadership extremely important. However, there are two things that play a role here that make the whole thing even more important. You have to consider that the characters also have to sleep. Depending on the character, they get tired after between 30 and 48 hours. And to fix that, you would need to rest again for 12 hours, so that in 60 hours you only have 48 usable ones, and 12 hours the mercenaries are paid for sleeping. So a more efficient use of the active time is even more important. But I saved the best, or let's say the most extreme and important thing for the end, and I actually can't imagine it's intended that way. If a car can do 1000 miles in 10 hours and another one is 100% faster, then you'd assume that it will do the same distance in just 5 hours, right? But in Jagged Alliance this is different. This second car would actually teleport to its destination instantly. The percentage you see here is actually showing how much of the traveling time is being reduced. A character like Raider with 91 points in leadership will decrease the traveling time by 66%. And this means that a group led by Raider is 3 times faster than a group led by Ice, who just got a leadership of 25, which equals to 0%. So while Ice is still on his journey, Raider can travel to the destination, back again, and then travel there again. And if you would manage to increase his leadership 9 additional points, he would even be 4 times as fast, which is absurd. Compared with a character you can create yourself, with just 30 or 40 points in leadership, one with 85 points would be traveling more than twice as far within the same time. It's not unlikely that this actually played a huge factor in playthroughs of players who finally ran out of money, not even being aware of the issue causing it. And if you haven't maximized your starting character for leadership, then there are only very few alternatives. Out of all the AIM mercenaries, there is only a single one with a really high leadership skill which isn't behind the gold membership. And that is Raider, meaning you are basically forced to recruit him if your main character doesn't bring that to the table. So if you are having problems with the money or don't know how to put out all the fires in so many places almost at the same time, then you got a solution now. This video was a bit more formula and math heavy, but I hope that you were able to follow the logic and that the video helped you. If anything changes, I will write about that in the comments. Thank you for watching and I wish you quick travels.
We're moving at a good pace. We're on track to reach the destination on time.